Awesome. Welcome everyone to the October 5th, 2022 meeting of the Riders Advisory Council. As chair, I call this meeting to order at 6:06 p.m. and we will have a roll call. John?
Sure. Brian Meyer?
Present.
Daryl Brewer? Jose Del Cid?
Here.
Mahalia Fernando?
Here.
Mike Leibowitz?
Here.
Marcelo Moreno?
Present.
Pat Sheehan?
Here on Teams, thanks.
Cole Stout?
Here.
Charmaine Taubman-Nwanji?
Here.
All right. Andrew Choi? And Emma Wormser?
Here.
All right. You have a quorum with 9 of 11 folks.
Awesome.
Either on Teams or present.
Perfect. Thank you so much, John. Everyone has been emailed the agenda for this evening, and I hope you all have had time to review it. I motion that we approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Cole. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say no. The agenda is approved. We'll now move on to public comment. This is where members of the public, either through pre-submitted comments or in person, are allowed to ask any questions or make a comment about the work that we're doing or about the work that we should do. Are there any members of the public that would wish to speak?
Stacy's saying everybody's muted.
John was muted now.
Okay.
We have to say that again.
Could she not hear Brian?
Can they hear me?
Folks in-
Jose, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. I heard John. And
Yeah,
Brian.
Do I need to be closer to the mic?
It's very hard to hear. It's quiet.
So I may need to
Okay,
move
please
forward.
Stand by.
Is my voice still faint? Jose or Emma or anyone?
No, it's stronger now.
It's better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I think we'll resume back with the agenda. Are there any members of the public who would like to make a comment? And John, you don't have anything pre-submitted?
No.
Okay. Hearing none, we'll move into our third agenda item, which is a robust discussion and accompanying presentation about the Better Bus Network redesign. We have a couple folks joining here, Al and Nick in person, and anyone from remotely?
Stacy and Lisa are on.
Stacy and Lisa. Welcome, thank you so much for joining us at the RAC meeting. And I will turn it over to you all. And the presentation has also already been emailed out to everyone to follow along if they have any questions or comments. I'll defer to you all.
Okay. Well, thanks for allowing us to come and speak with you on the project. I think we're all excited about this project moving forward, and we expect that we'll be back many more times to continue these discussions on the project. But we're here to have a discussion about the Better Bus network redesign project. And John, if you want to go to the next slide. So this evening, we just wanted to give you an overview about the project, the process and approach that we have for the project, details about our phase 1 engagement, which is starting very soon, next steps, and then questions and discussions. So next slide. So starting as an overview.
Sorry to interrupt, Al, but the PowerPoint isn't moving. Is that just for me, or is that for everybody else in Teams? It's
I can only see
for
the,
me.
yeah, it's on slide 1. I think they have to change their presentation.
All right, these.
You might have to enable editing to put it in presentation mode.
Never would have guessed that.
And John, I think you might have stopped sharing.
Yeah, I think you still need to share it on Teams.
How about now? Can you all see the second slide that says agenda, project overview?
Yes.
All right, thank you for that. Thank you for your patience.
Okay.
All right.
And everybody's on the third slide now?
Yes.
Okay. So picking up where we left off, so an overview, for many of you remember our bus transformation project. This is where the recommendation to do this network redesign came from. That there was a vision with that project, to have bus be the mode of choice on the region's roads by 2030, and serving as the backbone of a strong and inclusive regional mobility system that will support our growing and sustainable economy. This project had over a year of public and stakeholder input, and the outcome was, 4 strategies and 26 recommendations that would transform the bus system and provide fast, frequent, reliable, and affordable service that feels unified and advances transit equity. So this is just one of the elements to help fulfill the vision from this project. So next slide. So the Better Bus Initiative. So the Better Bus, that's the branding that we have come up with to move forward with implementing these recommendations from the bus transformation project. So the network redesign is just one of the elements of this Better Bus Initiative, which also includes things such as priority lanes and signals, improvements to bus stop and shelters, improvements to customer information, transition to zero emission vehicles, and all those other sort of things to help improve the bus service. But the particular project that we're working on is focused on that network redesign element of this larger initiative to improve bus service. So the next slide. Basically we want to make sure that, we're meeting our customers and regions' needs through this project. Doing things like increasing access to frequent service, optimizing and expanding the priority infrastructure that we have in the region, making the system easier to use and understand, aligning our network, the routes that we operate better with development and travel patterns, aligning the payment system and fare structure, things that we've taken initial steps with the improvements to the interaction between rail and bus that we implemented back in September of 2021, but continuing to build upon that, and increasing access to opportunity for customers. And what we hope that, what we want this to result in is, a long-term sustainable, predictable funding model for how we fund Metrobus, so we can be more predictable and provide, more reliable system in the future. Next slide. So an overview of where we're at on the project and how this project will continue to work over the life of the project here. We've completed the bus transformation project phase that we talked about. We're currently in this planning foundation step of the project, where we're planning outreach that, Nick will go into more details about all the outreach activities that we have, but the objectives of this planning foundations phase of the project is to identify what the guiding principles are for the project, which that was the focus of the board discussion back in September, to identify what the goals and priorities are for the project. So that's what we hope to gain from the public outreach that we're getting ready to enter into, and also identifying needs, gaps, and opportunities in the existing service that we operate. After we get through that phase, we're going to move into a phase where we're going to develop network alternatives. We're going to come back out for another round of outreach to present several scenarios of how the network could be structured, so everybody can have an opportunity to discuss trade-offs with how those different networks work and talk about what works well in one network versus the other, and learn more about how that all plays out when we can see these options on the map. And then after that round, we'll have another round of outreach where we'll develop a final network recommendation, taking what we learned from talking about those alternatives, combining them into a consolidated network that would be what we would be recommending to move forward with as far as implementing, get comments so we can make final tweaks on that network and get ready to send that network then to the board, so then that could be incorporated into the budget for fiscal year 25 and lead to the implementation of that new network. So the next slide. So the guiding principles that were adopted by the board last month for this project is that the guiding principles, we will ensure that this is a customer-focused network with a regional perspective, that we're engaging and communicating authentically, inclusively, and transparently throughout the project, ensure that equity is a value throughout the project, allow customers input, the region's needs, data, and service guidelines to drive decisions, attract customers with frequent, reliable, and connective service, and make cost-effective decisions about how we deliver our service. The next slide. We're also partnering with local bus providers in this, and also want to be aware and coordinating with the networks that already exist. We've gone through a process where we've spoken in length with the leadership at all the local jurisdictions about how they want to be included in the project. Prince George's County, the bus, and the City of Fairfax Q have indicated that they want us to throw everything about their networks into the mix and make proposals that redesigns their networks at the same time that we're redesigning ours, and come up with cohesive networks that work well with each other and make improvements collectively. The other systems have said that, basically they want us to assume that the networks that they have are pretty much where they want those networks to be, and design what we're doing with MetroBus around what exists in their networks already. However, in Montgomery County, they're also doing a study at the same time, their Ride on Reimagined study. So we are looking comprehensively at both networks within Montgomery County, but Montgomery County is leading those efforts, and we're participating in their study, and the study that they're leading will make recommendations that will drive what our recommendations are for Montgomery County in our overall study that we're doing. So the next slide. So also as part of the technical, as far as the technical approach to this project, while we're going out and doing this first round of outreach, we also have a team of people working in the background to do a number of other activities to help prepare us for that next phase of the project. This is evaluating the existing conditions, so the performance data for the current service. And just as an FYI on this, we've recently posted 3 years worth of the annual line performance reports on Metro's website. So if anybody wants to go find those performance reports for FY 19, 20, or 21, they are now in the initiatives, capital and service plan section of Metro's website, so you can go find those. We also are working on the report for FY 22, the year that just ended on June 30th, and that report should be up there in the next month or so as part of this project as well. We're also working on a demand and market assessment, which is trying to take a look at data that will help us identify areas that are currently underserved, looking at data about how people travel not on transit to and from various destinations to help us inform where additional transit service might help fulfill those needs. And then we also have the public and stakeholder engagement piece, which Nick is going to talk more about, starting with the next slide.
Thanks, Al. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Nick Adamo. I am a member of the project team, and I will be walking us through our very exciting public engagement process for phase 1 of the project. Our goal for outreach and engagement, not just in phase 1, but across the whole 18-month project, is to really be inclusive and authentic with all of our audiences that you'll see a snapshot of on the screen here. It includes the community with a really heavy focus on existing bus customers, but also looking to bring maybe former customers and non-customers to the table to see why they may have stopped riding bus service, what it might take to get them on the bus, etc. The Metro workforce and staff is a really important piece of this as well, working internally to make sure we are hearing about what's working good, what could be working better, and included in that is some bus operator listening sessions to really reach out to the folks on the front lines providing service, who hear from customers every day and really learn from them about what customers really like, what customers wish could be better, what they find confusing, etc. We also have stood up 2 committees, a technical committee and a community connections committee. The technical committee, pretty self-explanatory, made up of jurisdictions and Metro technical staff to really dig into a lot of the technical pieces of the project that Al was just speaking to. And the community connections committee is made up of community-based organizations, advocacy and rider groups, businesses, etc., other institutions and organizations across the region that we really want to leverage their input and leadership to know what their communities need and want out of bus service in the future. Also elected official engagement across the region at the local and state levels to really hit that very important stakeholder, as well as union leadership to hit at that very important labor piece of the puzzle as well. Next slide, please, John. So this is just an additional snapshot of all our engagement strategies across all of our audiences. And beginning with a press release very soon, you'll start hearing about this project from a bunch of different avenues and touch points. And we'll not be going through this whole slide. We've got a really robust program stood up for phase one. No matter who you are, whether you're someone who is signed up for Metro updates, subscribe to be notified every time Metro tweets something, if you're a senior citizen who's been taking the same bus route for 30 years, if you're a student, if you're a bus operator out of one of the bus garages, we really want to hear from you, and we're making sure we can bring you to the table. We've got a really big table, and hoping to talk with as many people as we can. Next slide. So just to dive in a little bit deeper on our online engagement, we are working to launch a project webpage that will be our kind of central hub for all things Better Bus and network redesign. Project details and timeline, a listing of our public events, really pushing hard a public survey that I'll talk about next, as well as some standard items like FAQs and an email newsletter sign up. And the public survey, set to launch on Friday of this week, will really be digging into the customer's experience, what works well today, what folks might face as barriers to using the bus, and what they might want in the future out of their bus network. And we'll be taking that public input, linking it up with the technical data, and using that to inform the goals and objectives and metrics for the project to put us on a really strong footing. Of note, the survey will be available online in English and Spanish, as well as over the phone for all other Metro languages throughout the region. Next slide, please. Our in-person engagements, first of which is what we're calling our roadshow pop-up events. And the concept here is taking the traditional public meeting, bringing it on the road, knowing that we can't always expect folks to come to us, we want to go to them. So we are hosting 15 of these pop-up events across the region throughout October and November. Different fall festivals, grocery stores, farmers markets, bus bays, transfer hubs, you name it, really going to where the people are. And we've got some interactive activities planned, we'll have some project information planned. Again, really encouraging people to take the public survey, and just having our outreach staff and our technical staff on hand to talk with people and really kind of be an extension of all these other touch points. We are also preparing for 9 bus stop chats, and this is a little bit different, more casual, informal touch points, really trying to get at folks out there who, for whatever reason, might be hesitant to approach a formal official project booth. Really stripped down just our multilingual street teams out there meeting people while they're waiting for the bus, even if they have 30 seconds to chat with us as their bus is pulling up. We want to hear from folks out across the service area. Hopefully of interest to this group, we will be coming back next month to your November RAC meeting and bringing more of our project team counterparts to really be available and have small group one-on-one discussions, talking about whatever you all want to talk about and opening that up to the public as well to kind of serve as a open house of sorts to talk about what we're hearing, what we're learning, what folks want to see. Next slide, John. This is a snapshot of our pop-up event locations. You'll see the red dots on the screen there, and our listing of dates and locations. While we don't have them on the table here, the yellow dots on the map indicate our bus stop chats. And we're really excited about a media event that is occurring on October 14th at Anacostia Station to really, officially kick off this project with elected officials, General Manager Clark, and others. And we really hope you'll join us, tell your communities and your constituents that these are happening. Join us and partner with us and talk to people at these events. Next slide. And how you can help us. We are launching our project webpage this week. That will be our one-stop shop for all things Better Bus. We will also have a digital communications toolkit, really a standard tool that Metro uses across a lot of capital and service projects, with things like sample newsletter copy, social media copy, images, fact sheets, things that we want to use to disseminate, spread the word, get people involved in talking to us. The public survey is our really big centerpiece of this phase 1 engagement, and we hope you all will take it as customers yourselves and encourage folks in your communities to take it as well. And again, spread the word and attend our pop-up events, sign up for our e-newsletter, etc.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. So the next steps for the project, this coming Friday is the launch of the project. The web page will be up, the public survey will be available, and we'll be out doing the pop-up events and the bus stop chats through November 11th. And then also coming up, Nick had mentioned briefly the Meet the Project team that we want to do right before your next meeting in November. So we wanted to make sure that it was very convenient for you all to come join us at that meeting, but we'll also be inviting others and reaching out to, especially hitting on those transit advocacy groups where we think might have people that want to come talk to us and share their ideas about things that we should be thinking about for the project. We will have virtual options available for that meeting as well. But we're really just looking to facilitate those one-on-one conversations with the service planners and the project teams that do generate a lot of good ideas for us to consider going into the project. And we really want to make sure that we're including you all and hearing your thoughts on the project as much as possible, especially with your role to represent what's in the best interest of our customers. And I think that will be a very effective partnership for the project. And I think basically the rest, so the discussion that we wanted to have is, what are you most interested in providing us feedback on? What will help you spread the word to your communities? What questions you have about the project and the process? And then lastly, specifically as the Riders Advisory Council, how do you want to be engaged in the project, and how frequently do you want to hear from us on the project and have those opportunities to work, interact and have those discussions with us. So however you want to facilitate this process
Yeah, most definitely. Well, thank you so much, Al and Nick, for coming to speak to us. That's a very comprehensive presentation about the initiative and the program. And, I'm really interested to see how the RAC can help support the efforts. I think it's very telling because as a share of pre-pandemic ridership, Metro Bus has always been the highest, right? And that just, obviously all of our systems are important, but this just highlights how important Metro Bus has been and will continue to be, serving underserved populations, trying to reach out to the entire metro region. And so I think really evaluating how it works and functions for our community and the region is vital. So thank you. I will open it up to members of the RAC if they have any questions for the project management and outreach team about this, about the Better Bus program.
So I have a quick question for you guys about the feedback that you gather. So I think you're probably primarily seeking feedback that'll help you design a new service, as you give to that service planners. And I think inevitably, especially in some of the public locations, you're going to get a lot of other feedback about Metrobus. How do you plan on like sharing that with the wider Metro team so we can, make sure that things, whether it's like signage and all that, also kind of gets back into the Better Bus initiative? What's the plan for that as well?
Yeah, I mean, whenever we do any sort of outreach project like this, we do collect comments that aren't specifically related to what we're doing on the outreach, but we do take all those comments. We do make sure that we distribute those comments to the relevant groups that can address those comments and make sure that we're addressing it. And like you said, many of these will be around some of the other Better Bus initiatives that aren't specifically network redesign as well. And we definitely have good connections with the other teams working on those projects, and many of them are involved in our technical committee or other internal meetings that we have. So we'll definitely be collecting all those comments and making sure that we incorporate those into other projects that we're working on for improvements as well.
Yeah, and we're prepared for that with our project website. One of our frequently asked questions on the FAQs page will be, how do I comment about something else about my bus? And we've also had a briefing with the customer service team, so they are ready to answer questions and send them to us or other relevant Metro departments as they come in through this project.
I see we have Jose. Jose?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to kind of provide some initial feedback. I'm just looking at the Better Bus and kind of like where kind of like you guys are branching out with the network redesign. One of the things I kind of want to provide you feedback is on like bus shelters just in general. I know it gets a little bit iffy once you go into like other jurisdictions like PG County and Fairfax and the like, but overall ownership and maintenance of those, like sometimes there's accidents on them, and I think it was like on the news maybe like a couple months ago, like there was like a process in order for it to get just redone in order for people to use it. As just going through all that, however it gets passed back between WMATA and the local jurisdictions, I think that's one thing that with this Better Bus initiative should kind of be ironed out as far as who does what, who's accountable for what, and giving direct or clear responses to the users of the network and Metro bus riders. So, and on the last question, hopefully other folks have stuff to opine on. I'm happy enough for you guys to continue to be engaged with us in the RAC. Frankly, this is very important. There's a lot of folks who use the bus service, I think, more than Metro Rail, and the more frequency, the more riders can use it. And you can take two buses. I live in Fairfax County, commute to the city of Alexandria, and Metrobus is the only way I'm going to be able to connect to both. Look forward to hearing everyone else's thoughts from the RAC, but really good presentation. I thank you guys for sharing those materials, and I'd be happy to attend any of pop-up events with you guys if that's something that is being offered as well. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly, yes, if anybody wants to join a pop-up event and help talk to our customers, that's more than welcome. I think Nick can probably send the detailed schedule to John if he doesn't have it already, or but we'll make sure John gets the detailed schedule of those pop-up events. Although, just note on the schedule for the pop-up events, they are subject to change for the weather. They're structured in such a way that, like, if it's pouring down rain, that those events could be moved to a different day rather than like spending our time out there when nobody wants to talk to us in the rain.
And our project webpage will have the listing of pop-up events will be a prominent piece of the webpage, and we'll keep that updated as things change.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jose.
Pat, how are you doing, Pat?
Yeah, I'm doing great tonight. I don't know if this comment that I'm going to make is relevant, but we've been working on a project in Montgomery County dealing with items called floating bus stops. Are you familiar with those?
Yes.
Okay. So I think that there is an effort, and I know that Montgomery County has sort of been ahead of the curve on ensuring that whatever we're designing in the region, Virginia, DC, and Maryland, is consistent with accessibility requirements. I'm a blind person, so that when a bus stop gets moved from the off the sidewalk into the middle of the street, I don't know that it's been moved. There is a gentleman in Montgomery County, Matt Johnson, who has done a lot of work in this area. So it's something that I've been working on for a couple of years in Montgomery County. It would be great to, and I know that WMATA has briefed on it several times, to make sure that the bus stops would be consistent between, Maryland, DC, and Virginia.
Yeah.
There are some accessibility requirements there that, I won't go into them now, but that would be very useful, that we make sure that we don't have one set of bus stops in Maryland, another set designed a certain way in DC, and another in Virginia. So anything that I can do on that score, I've been involved in that for, as I said, 2-3 years. We've had fits and starts, but we're making progress.
Yeah. That's not specifically part of this network redesign project, but
I didn't, that's why I wasn't sure.
But
Okay.
but just as an update, well, since you ask, we do have a project underway to develop guidelines for those specific types of bus stops and some other stuff having to do with like how we interact where bus stops are near bike lanes and stuff like that. So
Great.
so we do have, that project just got underway to update our guidelines, so we have some officially documented guidelines from Metro on how those stops should be designed, so we can share those with the jurisdictions. Many of the lessons learned probably will come from the work that Montgomery County did, because as you mentioned, Matt Johnson did do a fairly thorough job, and there are some good guidelines that the county has to use as a model for that. So that project is underway. As you're familiar, we met with the Accessibility Advisory Committee on that several times, and as we further develop out adopting official guidelines for Metro on those guidelines, the Accessibility Advisory Committee will probably be one of the primary groups that we would use for feedback on what those guidelines are that we want to propose moving forward.
And I'm a member of that committee, of course, AAC. But I'm wondering also if it might be useful to, if you'd like to maybe coordinate with the Accessibility Advisory Committee, because I think this presentation would also be useful. That Bus and Rail Subcommittee,
Yeah, we'll be providing this presentation to the next Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting as well. But yes, we'll be making the presentation. But we're looking for the Riders Advisory Council to be the primary advisory group for this particular project.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's great. And now I'll get to see it twice.
Yep.
Yeah, can't beat it. Okay, good, sir. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, we have Mahela. Mahalia?
Hi, I'm Mahalia Fernando. I'm a member of the RAC. I live in Prince George's County, and I'll sometimes use the bus, which is the PG County bus service, right after getting off a Metro bus. You're collecting a lot of information from different user groups and stakeholders. Are there plans for knowledge sharing with other bus systems that supplement Metro bus, such as the bus or ART?
Yes. All of those systems are members of our technical advisory committee, and the intent of that technical advisory committee is to really get down into the details of how this project is being developed. So, we'll be sharing that information with them through that technical advisory committee. We also will just be sharing that information through our regular coordination that we do with those agencies as well. Our bus service planning team, which falls under my group, they have regular monthly meetings with the service planners from each of those local systems and continually share that information with them, and we'll continue to do so on the information that we gather from this project.
Al, can I just clarify, I think, so the bus, Prince George's County's, the bus's inclusion in this bus network redesign project will ultimately result in not just redone Metro bus routes in Prince George's County, but likely also a change to Prince George's County bus routes.
Yes.
In the county, because that's how they're included. Prince George's County is sort of all in on this project. I can't see the slide, but it's in the deck. It talks about how the different levels of participation among the different jurisdictions. So as an outgrowth of this project, not only will there be a redesign of Metro bus routes in Prince George's County, but also the bus routes in Prince George's County.
Yeah. So yes, specific to Prince George's County, their transit planning staff is involved in the project at even a higher level than the technical team. We're currently having weekly meetings with the Prince George's County planning staff because we are redesigning, their network is being redesigned along with our network as part of this project. And so everything that we're doing for Metro Bus, we're doing the exact same thing for Prince George's County, the bus service, and their staff is at seated at the table with our staff going through all that stuff at the same time. We're working as partners on the project.
Gotcha, thank you. Yeah, I saw the slide. I wasn't quite sure about the levels of engagement, but thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
Are there any other additional questions? Mike?
I have a question for Mike.
Yeah.
I really appreciate the outreach efforts. It's really well planned. I think that's somewhere down the line we can actually maybe share some information to achieve the goals. Just one question about that though. How much in your planning involves like a deep dive into other jurisdictions that are maybe comparable to this system, like away from this area? You mentioned earlier what works and what doesn't work, and asking questions to, through your outreach programs for people here. But as you kind of create your technical, aspects and everything like that, have you a plan to consult with other jurisdictions, not necessarily an outreach, but to see what works and doesn't as they build up their systems?
That's an important process to the project, but it's pretty much a process that's mostly complete. I mean, we're still, there's still opportunities to learn some things about implementation and stuff like that, but we did an extensive amount of research into that, and we had discussions with those other agencies that have done these network redesigns and such. But we did that part of the process prior to writing our scope for the project. So then that way, when we put this project out to bid for consultant services to help implement our particular project, we're taking all that into account based on how we wrote the scope for what the consultant team bid on. So we weren't asking the consultant team after they were awarded to include that sort of research as part of what their work was, because we did that internally prior to the project, and we also had we had like three sessions with the transit planning staff from all of our local jurisdictions to go through the scoping process and lessons that we learned from other systems, things that we wanted to include in the scope. So that was part of the project, but it's part of it. It's a phase that we're pretty much, we're using those lessons that we learned to develop what we've presented to you today, and all that was sort of accounted for in that.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions? Cole?
Yes, Nick, I think on one of your slides, I saw that there was a digital communications toolkit.
Mhm.
Is that just available for anyone to download on the website? That
Mhm.
will be?
Yeah, that'll be fully public. It'll have, fact sheets, rack cards, kind of smaller promotional materials that will also be disseminating at the pop-ups on board buses, things that, organizations or jurisdictions can take and repurpose, to send on their Twitter page, their email newsletter to their subscribers, which is really to amplify the reach through the materials that we've already developed.
Thank you.
And I do have a question, and maybe this is getting a little bit into the weeds. So obviously a lot of this work is going to be happening concurrently with the proposal, adoption, and realization of the FY24 budget. And we inherently, as with any budget, there's going to be fare and service changes that are going to be associated with Metro Bus, just like Metro Rail and Metro Access. How much do you anticipate what's happening with the rest of FY23, but also FY24 impacting the work that you're doing?
Right now we're moving forward with this project, assuming that we have the current level of resources to plan for what this would be the FY25 service plan.
Okay. And then that also includes the projected ridership increases as well year over year, because I know that Metro Bus, again, not to be too repetitive, has outpaces a lot of the other systems compared to pre-pandemic.
The market assessment phase of the project, that would, in that FY21 report, really will have some good information about what the most transit dependent users of our system, customers that we had, what were they doing, because that's that was that FY21 report's going to be when the pandemic was at its worst, and it'll show us some good information about what did the system look like when our customer base was really just the most transit dependent.
And then, this is more of a comment than a question, but in terms of, the frequency with which we would like to be engaged with, I know we're going to be doing a lot of great work talking more about this next month, but we're also going to, in our work plan that we're scheduled to review at this meeting, an update in a few months, right? I think it was January or maybe February, John, I forget.
So it's sort of dependent on, when you all would have enough information from that you gathered in phase 1 to come back and tell the group something, what you found out, a summary of your comments, and that's obviously dependent on when you all figure that out.
Yep.
And our work plan is pretty flexible to accommodate, obviously, the changing schedules of things like that.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some key milestones in the project that were identified on one of those slides in the presentation, where we want to make sure that we're having a thorough discussion with you all at those key milestones. We're expecting to have results of this phase 1 outreach available in December, so it might be that December works out, it might be that January is the best for that, to have a chance to have it more thoroughly processed. Definitely in that April sort of time frame when we're going to be going out with those network alternatives. We want to have an extensive discussion and interactive opportunity, similar to like what we're doing next month with the Meet the Project team, and just be able to to have those thorough discussions with the transit service planners, looking at the map and showing how it's drawn and saying, you know, talking about what looks good on it, what doesn't work so well on it. So that's gonna, you know, so that time frame is gonna be very critical. And then when we get to like taking the comments that we've heard from the customers and stakeholders about those alternatives to help develop what that final map should look like, and then having that same discussion again about the final map, and you know, what tweaks do we need to be made, you know, what did we maybe overlook that we need to tweak on that final map to just get it where it needs to be successful.
Yeah, I think important to note that all the approaches for engagement that we just talked about is for phase one, which is one of 3 phases. So in this immediate fall term, that's all we're doing, and we will be coming out in some equally robust ways next year as we, you know, develop the actual networks too.
Perfect. Are there any other questions from members of the RAC? Okay. Hearing none, I just want to thank you all for coming again. I know taking time out of your evening on this Wednesday. We greatly appreciate it, and we're looking forward to keeping in touch about the work that you're doing and how we can, you know, not only continue to be advocates for the riders, but also collect information and help with your outreach efforts. So we appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, no, thanks for your time.
Awesome, thanks. Okay. We will move on to our next item of the agenda, which is the draft RAC work plan for 2022-2023. This is something that our executive council has reviewed, and John, you're going to present it to the group as a whole, and we're going to discuss it as well as make maybe any necessary adjustments as needed. So John, I will push it over to you.
Sure, thank you, Brian. So I just wanted to sort of put out there for y'all's consideration, and again, even though it doesn't show up great, this is very draft, sort of a look ahead of topics that the RAC might want to consider discussing in its subsequent meetings. You know, tonight we're talking about our bus redesign, and then we'll get to some other agenda items. At next month's meeting, considering, you know, as the Better Bus folks said, they are hoping to hold an open house in conjunction with the RAC meeting, and then maybe do a little bit of or have a discussion on how Metro measures its performance and how we're doing, sort of measured against our goals and objectives for performance. Then in December is when the general manager annually or usually drops his annual proposed budget, and we start our budget outreach. Metro staff is also working on what they're calling the strategic transformation plan. That's looking to make some near and medium term, you know, big changes to the authority as part of the general manager's vision for making us, you know, for your metro, as he calls it, you know, for making us sort of the best, most customer responsive agency in the nation. And so I know that he and his group are interested in getting y'all's input on that. You know, along with outlining some of the things that he's going to be proposing as part of his budget that we'll be going out to the public with in the winter. And then in January, you know, if folks, now that the general manager's budget is out there and folks have questions about it, there'd be time to work through that. To do maybe a little bit of a deep dive on what Metro hears from its customers, you know, how we talk to our customers, how we measure their satisfaction, and what kind of insights we get from them, and how we use that. And then, you know, if they're ready, the Better Bus folks would come back and talk to us about their findings from phase 1 of the project. In February, assuming that our budget timeline goes like it has in past years, would be an opportunity for you all to discuss what you heard for the public budget process, so that you all can formulate recommendations to the board in March about what, you know, what the board should adopt, what it should, you know, say thanks but no thanks to in terms of proposals for fares and service, and any other kind of recommendations you make as part of the budget, which I think this year is going to be pretty big and pretty transformative for the authority. You know, I mean, I think everybody knows that this is going to be a difficult year, but it also, you know, it also offers us a lot of opportunities to shake things up. And then, you know, again, coming back with how Metro is doing in terms of its performance, and you know, how it's measuring up against its proposed performance goals, and what it's doing when, you know, when we don't measure up what we're doing to try and improve some of our performance. You know, this is really just a very skeletal look. I'd really love to hear other ideas for what it is that, you know, you all want to talk about at your meetings, for areas where you think you can, you know, provide valuable insight, or things you'd like to learn more about. Randy he talked at last month's meeting about, you know, doing some field trips that we need to figure out, you know, seeing our operations control center, seeing some bus, you know, going out with bus street supervisors, or riding along with members of our transit police, any of those things. So really, this is a very rough draft of, hey, here's some things you might want to talk about so that you can help the board when it has decisions coming up. But then also, it's sort of a plea on my end that these are y'all's meetings, and I want to make them, you know, we want to make them interesting and meaningful and relevant for you. And so I would love to hear sort of other things that you would want to talk about or learn more about as part of this process.
And I have a couple of comments about this. First of all, John, thank you so much for putting this together and providing us with some of the guidance about discussions that the board is having and how we can provide input where it's necessary, as well as thank you for other members of the Executive Council for also helping create this. I will have to just say that for our new members, this is important. Not only is it in our bylaw that we create a work plan, but it's also designed to ensure that there's the best collaboration between us and the board, because we advise the board of directors on, you know, policy initiative ideas, and represent the riders in that respect. When there is not alignment with that, it's two ships passing in the night, right? And it's not necessarily a good use of our time when our items are not actionable, right? Because we want to affect change. That's why we're here. So we want actionable items. And that's kind of why we have a work plan in the first place, and why it's broken down by our topic, what the board is talking about, and how we play a role in that, whether it's informational or advisory. So that's kind of why it's broken down in this particular manner. I think what, you know, knowing that everyone has received a copy of this beforehand and we just reviewed it, I think if anyone has any particular comments or questions about it, this is a great time to do it. And again, this is a draft. This is not, you know, I think out of a matter of best practice, it's important to adhere to this, knowing that the board has a very fixed schedule, and, you know, while things do pop up, they have things that they need to get done, and we want to align with those efforts. In terms of the timing, we do have some flexibility. We're not signing a contract here, so to speak. So I'll open it up to the floor. Jose.
Yeah, John, I think this is a pretty good draft work plan. It kind of keeps us honest about what the next couple months is going to be, especially with the budget. I'd be interested to learn a little bit more about some of the metro initiatives that are like on the WMATA page. There's some like about like art and transit and some of the, maybe just diving a little bit more deep into the data as that stuff comes. The only other thing, I wasn't at the September meeting, but I think the manager's comment about field trips is great, but there's opportunities like whether it's I don't know what constitutes a meeting with members of the RAC, but doing these field trips, but also opportunities to do some stakeholder writer engagement as well. I think there's opportunity to do both, whether we're in Northern Virginia, DC, or Maryland. Just a way to cross-pollinate because it's all one system, and I think you can learn a lot from just about everyone. Because I'm a bus rider, but there's other folks that take Metro. But I'll get back to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Marcella.
Hey y'all. This work plan is fantastic. Thank you, John, for putting it together. I think one thing that I'd like to, do a deep dive in is this bus network reimagination or redesign, and kind of echoing Jose's thoughts that he just gave and the ones he gave after the presentation. If there's a way for the RAC to get involved with that stakeholder outreach, I think that could be really valuable. Since the bus is such a critical part of the system, especially as we're navigating all of the Metro Rail issues.
Subtly said issues. Are there any other comments? I will say, John, personally for me, I think the FY24 budget recommendations from the RAC, we may want to move up a month. I think, because once Finance and Capital has their meeting in early March, I feel like things are starting to solidify at that point, and us having like a week in between our recommendations or even maybe just a couple of days, I don't even know, I need to look at the calendar. I think we may want to move it up a month, in my opinion.
Okay, what I would say at this stage is, this is going to be a very different budget year.
Yeah.
And so that may translate into a different budget schedule.
Okay.
So I guess my recommendation would be that we keep an eye on this and remain flexible.
Okay.
We've got big challenges here, which means we're probably going to propose some.
When I was in the hallway, I was looking for the same 184 million we're all
Yeah.
looking for.
Yeah, and unfortunately my spare change container is dry. But
My wallet's empty too.
So I guess I say that to say I would ask that you all agree to remain a little bit flexible in terms of budget timeline, because we as staff are still trying to sort of nail that down, and it's going to be a little bit different. So
And that's fine. Just to reiterate what I said, and I'm not signing a contract here by us approving this draft work plan. But if you all haven't seen the presentation that was in Finance and Capital from 2 weeks ago about our FY24 budget, you can look it up on YouTube, or wait for the actual budget to come out, because that's what the actual budget will look like, is when it comes out and the information that we'll have to deal with then. But I feel like it will take up a lot of our time in the winter, which maybe is kind of also symbolic in its own regard. But so just be prepared for that, everyone. That for the first few months of the new year, there's going to be a big budget to deal with, and a lot of information to consume, in a lot of different ways in which we can provide feedback, recommendations based off of our experience and advocating for the riders. So
I will send a copy of that presentation out, and then I believe that next week the board's going to have some more discussions on the budget with, I think, some information that may be even more directly interesting to you all as riders and rider representatives. So, as soon as that is available and I can send it out, FYI, I will do that.
Brian, this is Pat.
Hey, Pat.
And I know that in the past, right alongside with what goes on with RAC, AAC looks at the budget too. It would be great if we could be coordinating recommendations and share our thoughts back and forth between the two committees as closely as we can. Because I agree with you, that's going to be sort of that's going to be a priority for disability groups also. And it's always more powerful when we can go with joint recommendations and joint set of priorities.
agreed. It adds even more voice to the recommendations. And John, I have a question for you. Obviously, the budget is really two different things: the capital and the operational. I forget, my memory's fading me from last year. It's largely going to be operational, our recommendations and discussion in nature?
I mean, I would think so.
Okay.
Just because those are things that, are most immediate
Yeah.
in terms of, what service do we operate? How often does it come? Where does it go? How much does it cost?
Right.
Yes, the capital program is a little bit longer term and maybe a little bit less immediate, but it's also impactful, just maybe not as directly, right? If you're riding on an old bus or, enduring through an 8-month rail line shutdown, it is certainly impactful to you, but, so I think it's a little bit of both, but probably a little bit more focused on the operations. And if I could just add one more thing in, he wasn't able to be with us this evening, but Brian Dwyer, the Chief Operating Officer, said he plans to sort of be a regular attendee at these meetings. So, if there are things under his purview as Chief Operating Officer that, I think maybe that's something that can be a regular agenda item to coordinate with him as well. So that's his wheelhouse, and he said he had something come up tonight, but he plans on being a regular attendee.
And he asked me to pass along any comments that came up that were relevant to COO, so.
Okay. And again, I'll say it one more time, this is y'all's group, and so if there are things that you want to explore, that we can put out there to make our agendas and information more relevant and meaningful, please do not hesitate.
And just a reminder again, April 2023, we'll be electing a whole new leadership slate. Well, not necessarily, it's new for the new year. Some of the individuals may stay depending on if they want to, but that's another thing that we'll be doing again. Yeah, I think obviously with some of those asterisks and, just giving us that extra level of flexibility to maybe adjust this timeline, especially when it comes to the FY24 budget, as it comes to the work of the Better Bus Network redesign, as well as the addition of, I think, opportunities for us to attend community events or outreach initiatives. Not that necessarily needs to go in the work plan, but kind of having that as an addendum to the work plan. And again, those things don't necessarily, some of those can't be projected 5 months out. Some of them only a few weeks or a month or two. But we'll work on getting that to members of the RAC as well.
And April and June, where you did not have anything on your calendar, are probably going to be times based on our current schedule where we can have a significant discussion on those network alternatives. April being when we can talk about what those alternatives are, and June talking about, like after we did the outreach on it, what did we hear from the customers about all the outreach on all those alternative plans.
And the plus side is going to be the transition into spring, and so everyone's going to be happy.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to awaken from their winter slumber.
The bridge across the Potomac. Is
Yeah,
that the
exactly. Yeah, really. Okay.
Quick question before we move on. I know that Metro Rail is in the beginning to the design stage for the 8Ks. How do they gather public opinion on that? What's the timeline on that? Just high level, if that needs to be worked in the next 6 months.
So, I think we have passed the design stage. We have awarded a contract. Hitachi has announced that they're building a factory in Hagerstown to build these cars. So we have the specs, and I want to say they are getting ready to break ground on the factory soonish. Within the next month or two, if not sooner. So I'll try and get some, I guess, a little bit more detailed information on the project for you all. I'm not sure how much more flexibility there is in terms of the design. I think everything's largely spec'd out at this point. I know that with and Pat can back me up on this because he was here many, many years ago, that they did with the 7000 series, because they were such a radical departure from what we had in the system beforehand. There was a full-scale mock-up that I know that the RAC and the AAC, we got on a bus and we drove out to New Carrollton and walked through this mock-up to give, see, Pat remembers, to give input. I don't know, because the 8000 series will be, I think, a lot more similar to the 7000 series. It will represent a little bit less of a break. I don't know what the process is for that kind of review, but it's something I'll try and find out.
John, I remember when we talked to them in our group, it was a year ago, thereabouts, they said they were going to have a cars really even much better than we had with the 7000 series to look at. So I think the mock-up, call it that, would be pretty much a train we could walk into and really look at. I agree with you. I don't think they're pretty receptive when we talked about that. I think it was like a year and a half ago, as far as design changes. I was pretty pleased with that. So, we'll see what we get. But I would expect that we'd have at least what we had back with the 7000. But I think we're going to get more as far as critical ability. All the pictures you want to and diagrams and all. But when you get a chance to walk through the car, you can test things like the floor, is it no slip? How are they going to work with that? The buttons, lighting, all that kind of stuff. It's really worthwhile. So when we get a chance to do that, I would say let's jump on it.
Okay, I will reach out to staff to.
And just to clarify, and I think this is what Pat was talking about, is the RAC has been briefed, but that was like last year.
Oh, it was probably
last summer,
it's
even
been
last spring.
Before that, I feel like it was much longer.
I think ours was like 2 years ago, I think, but
I know
we gave
there's a presentation
recommendations. I think the RAC did too, yeah.
Okay.
So maybe an informational update or something, but yeah. I agree, because those are obviously a big and a noticeable capital asset that riders interact with every single day. Are there any other questions about the work plan? Or comments? Hearing none, I motion that we approve this draft work plan. Again, acknowledging that schedules and timelines change, but that the general substance of the work plan will help guide our discussions through next spring. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Micah and from Mike and Jose. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Right.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The work plan is approved. Thank you so much, John, again. And we'll just communicate all of this with Brian.
Yep.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the RAC Annual Report Committee. I will, Mike, if you feel comfortable, I can pass this over to you if you would like to just give a brief explanation as to kind of the inspiration behind this and why you think this is important.
Yeah, I will do that.
Yes.
All right, thanks, Brian. Hello, everybody. So we've talked a few meetings now about this idea for the annual report committee. So how I envision this to be is really, I view it as kind of a RAC capstone work product that we would churn out every year that incorporates really things that are kind of it's basically an encapsulation of our mandate from the bylaws and our founding documents. So, and there's basically, so we break it down into sections. And this will sound familiar kind of with the bus thing we talked about earlier, is that we have this information gathering phase where the members of the committee will conduct various forms of outreach and coordinate with Metro staff to gain access to some of their outreach. So it'll be a different, multi-tiered. So I actually envisioned things that we saw earlier where we would have the kind of like the pop-ups where we would coordinate with Metro staff so that they know we're coming, and we'd go and just be okay and ask these kind of set questions to riders, whether it's bus or train or Metro access. And then we would have kind of individual aspect where members of the annual report committee would actually go and personally speak to riders, in various points throughout the transit zone at various times to ask them these set questions, with the whole point being that, okay, we are fulfilling our mandate to gather input from the riders directly, and we're also going to get from the staff everything else and we're going to consolidate everything and put it together in one comprehensive work product. And so what I imagine is that the first meeting of the annual report committee, or it could just be via email too. We don't have to meeting us to death since we all have lives and things like that. And I think a lot of it's pretty straightforward. And if you look at what was submitted that John had sent the other day, I kind of have a kind of a example of how I envision the process would go. And where the first meeting or a series of emails, we essentially would assign tasks to everybody on the group. And we know that everybody on the committee would have the task of, at some point, time frame, talking to riders, in your areas, whether it's riding the buses or riding the trains or both. And really, and then the meeting also would solidify the timeline for the information gathering phase. And then would also, again, certain taskers would be for members of the committee would go and say, okay, you, for example, one of your jobs would be to go talk to the bus people or the staff, through our liaisons or whoever want to do that, to actually kind of get on board. Maybe we actually want to go into some of the pop-ups that we were talking about. And then that could be part of this. We can have a committee member go to a set pop-up and then kind of piggyback on that where we talk about buses, but also the gathering information. So that's why, but to keep it simple, I thought that we should have a baseline of just 2 or 3 set questions that, according to the draft example that I have, would have certain baseline questions, which would be essentially, my original idea was, what are the issues that you see? What are your possible solutions? And that's kind of we have to ask that, and anything else is we can say whatever on that. So that's basically how I view it. And the one thing is the big ask for this is that, if the more members of the RAC that join the committee, the better. The draft that I wrote up, I think we have to have a minimum of 4, but I think we need to have more, to be honest, because the whole point of this is to advise the board, the staff, and relevant stakeholders, and we make it a public document. So we want to include as much and incorporate as much information, as much rider feedback, as much informed solutions that we can come up with through all of our stuff, which involves again interacting with the riders and analyzing the outreach that the staff has put together. And the more people that are actually going out talking to people, whether it's metro access, whether it's the trains, whether the buses throughout our jurisdictions, I think the more we can do that, the more comprehensive, the more effective it can be, because the ultimate goal is then we put together the written report, we make it public, and then the chair would then go and would present it. Would present it to the board publicly, and they would use it as they want to use that. And I think from there we can incorporate other things depending on the timeline, things that we've accumulated throughout the year, whether it's budgetary recommendations and things like that. So we can really make it as all-encompassing as possible. So that's my big pitch of, if anybody, even at a minimum, if you can join the committee, if we approve the committee, so that you can just basically, on your commutes, at the very minimum, just talk to riders. And there is a social media aspect as well, where, and I wrote it down, I'm not going to repeat it here for them unless someone wants me to kind of explain in more detail, but where we can get the social media online, get a designated RAC email account so that people can send us emails directly that answer our specific questions and whatever else they want to say. And there is some minimal vetting that I've incorporated into this so that we can, so that way we're not just getting random guy on Twitter saying, holy hell, the buses or the trains or whatever. We can actually make sure, and these will be requirements for our vetting, is that, where, we don't need names or anything like that, but just what rail line or bus line or and time are you using this? So we can at least confirm to some degree that the people we're talking to, interacting with, are riders. And of course, as we meet personally with people, that kind of solves that issue there. So I turn it back to Brian, I guess, to see how you want to proceed.
And I think I forget whether, because I'm reading it, I've already read it, but I'm rereading it right now. I think the hope would also be to get an update sometime, or maybe in, I don't know exactly, halfway through the process, or we can figure out a time, an update to the RAC as a whole about the progress of the committee. That wasn't in the work plan, but we'll slide it in there.
And I wrote up in the kind of the pseudo bylaws, or what I call it, the creation and implementation procedures. I think I did write in there that at every monthly RAC meeting, to the extent there's a meeting, we would, the chair of the annual report committee would brief the RAC every month to say, like, hey, even if it's as little as, hey, we're still in information gathering phase, so-and-so is assigned to this person is assigned to this, we're moving along, and then leave it at that. It doesn't have to be a comprehensive report of a comprehensive report. But the intent is to keep the RAC membership as a whole, the executive committee, as well as our liaisons, fully informed every month of what we're doing, so that Brian, as the chair, in his discretion during each WMATA board meeting, can incorporate this to the extent he wants to, or at whatever level he wants to. So.
Okay. Are there any questions, comments about what we've read?
I put the RAC to sleep. So I've done my job.
So, if my understanding is correct, it would be a 3-part process. First, we vote for the creation of the committee. Then we recruit or ask for volunteers to comprise the committee. And then from that, I think it said that the RAC as a whole would elect a chair from those people that are part of that. And then you all would be good to go to start your work.
That's correct. And since I have this creation implementation procedures, there was a kind of a draft question in there. I propose maybe if we want to adopt kind of what I wrote up in this, where that part where it's in highlighted, we just stick with my original baseline questions. We can always amend it as needed. That way we can just get it off the ground with some.
Section 2, Part 4.
I created a clean copy.
Yeah.
So yes, it would be exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So that would be my my suggestion, just so we can get it moved. If to the extent the board or the RAC agrees.
That's fine. I think, yeah. And frankly, I forget what I said that night as well.
So everybody else, Bryna and Brian told this to me as we were walking onto the train after the last meeting, and I didn't have a pen. And my memory used to be good, but it's not anymore.
Okay. I motion that the annual report committee of the Writers Advisory Council is created based off of this draft document. Is there a second?
Second.
Hearing a second.
Second is there.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Hearing no opposition, it is approved. Now we will take voluntary recommendations, in order to serve on the committee. If you are interested in this, please indicate so right now. Mike, I think we can count you as member number 1, right?
What's your believer?
And I think also one of the values that we have is to ensure that there's a fair representation across the jurisdictions on this council, as well as various modes of transportation, whether it be using Metrobus or Metro Rail or Metro Access. Marcella, I have you, so we will have you on this committee. Jose, we'll have you on the committee as well.
Sweet, thanks.
Mahalia, we'll have you on the committee.
Alright, let me just, Jose, Mike, Marcella, Mahalia.
Okay. 1 second.
So that gets us to 4, correct?
If I could throw in a pitch that if you join the committee, you don't have to attend meetings other than read some emails, and the big ask for the people that are on the fence would be if you can just talk to people on your rides, your commutes, I think we would be happy with that, because I think that would ensure getting a more diverse group of riders from around the city.
So far.
And Pat Sheehan would join the committee to specialize on disability issues.
I was going to ask you personally, so thank you so much.
Yeah,
I think that's so important.
That is kind of my role, being on this committee, to coordinate with what is being done on that AAC. So, and we do an awful lot of outreach. So, disability issues, we can get an app for that.
And honestly, we couldn't do this without disability, so that's perfect. Thank you.
Good. Okay.
So John, can you repeat the names? Sorry.
Right now I have Mike, Jose, Marcella, Mahalia, and Pat.
Are there any other members that wish to be on this? So we have
5.
5, and all 3 jurisdictions are covered.
You can go ahead and add me to the list as well, John.
And Cole.
Alright, we're up to 6. This is happening. That's great.
Perfect. Hearing that, I motion that we approve that slate as articulated. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Great.
I motion. Okay. The slate is approved, and I motion that the RAC appoints Mike Lee Woods as chair of the annual report committee. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Hearing none. Mike is the chair of that committee, comprised of the individuals that we approved using that draft document as guidance to your work. Perfect.
Thank you. I just say that for the members, I'll send. How about I send you an email, CC Brian and everyone else, because we keep everybody on board with that, and then we can figure out the next step, whether we need a meeting or just do it via email. Through we'll set it up via email to begin with.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Happy to host something virtually as well.
Are there any other questions or comments about the RAC Annual Report Committee? Hearing none, we'll move on to our 6th item of the agenda, which is announcements and new business. Do any members of the RAC have any announcements or new business items that they would like to discuss? John.
Sorry to hone in. I just wanted to presence this, and if you were paying close attention during Al and Nick's presentation, they are planning on, in conjunction with the RAC meeting, hosting this bus network redesign open house. For logistical reasons, in order to have our space set up and be able to do this, we're proposing pushing the RAC meeting in November back by a week, from November 2nd to November 9th. And so I just wanted to sort of presence that and make sure that there's no big freak out, I guess would be the technical term. I don't know if you all need to vote on...
Is anyone freaking out over that fact? Hearing none, I think we're good.
So just FYI, you have our next meeting, the RAC's next meeting would be the evening of November 9th. Same that time, same that channel in terms of format and all of that. And hopefully we'll get some bus customers here to chat with, and you'll also be able to talk with the project.
Not a new business item, but just a general announcement, just an update on what I've been doing. 2 weeks ago, I was at the Board of Directors meeting, as well as the Finance and Capital meeting as well, but I presented RAC's report at the Board of Directors meeting, and then last week we had our grand ceremony opening celebration of Metro headquarters. And so it was great. Mayor Bowser and Congresswoman Norton was there, as well as various members of the Board of Directors. We're in this beautiful building. I encourage everyone who has not been here to come by. It's great to help support the work of staff, and certainly a much better facility than what you all were previously. So, and it's also great, we have snacks here, snacks and drinks, so you're missing out. Yeah, so just feel free, all meetings are gonna remain hybrid. If you'd like to stop by, I'm sure we could also just arrange that. But come and see the new home of WMATA. That's all I have. Are there any other announcements or new business items? Hearing none, I motion to move to our next agenda item, which is the adjournment. So I motion that we adjourn this meeting of the Riders Advisory Council on October 5th, 2022 at 7:41 p.m. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your evening, and talk to you all soon.
Be on the lookout for some updating.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.